This is Thanos, the mad titan who wiped out half the universe with a snap of his fingers. And this is Hela, the goddess of death, and Thor's powerful sister. Both of these villains have intense power and grand ambitions, but while Thanos became a legendary villain in the MCU, Hela's impact faded away just as quickly as she appeared. Today we're diving into exactly why Thanos' villainy works and Hela's falls short.
All my years of conquest.
The first reason Thanos' villainy works so well is because he was built up over years. He wasn't a villain of the week who appeared out of nowhere. He was a constant, looming threat hinted at throughout the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. His first appearance was a mere cameo in the post-credits scene of The Avengers back in 2012, and from that moment on, the MCU began laying the groundwork for his ultimate goal, the snap. Marvel gave Thanos the time to grow in the shadows, building anticipation and dread over multiple movies. He was the ultimate puppet master, sending Ronan after the Power Stone, orchestrating events through Loki, and then finally taking action himself in Infinity War. By the time he arrived, the audience knew who he was, what he wanted, and why he was a serious threat. This long-term build-up gave him weight and significance like no other Marvel villain. On the other hand, Hela was introduced in Thor Ragnarok and defeated within the same movie. She's certainly powerful and makes an incredible entrance by destroying Thor's hammer, but her backstory as Odin's long-lost daughter is suddenly revealed with no previous build-up. She enters the story as a surprise character, but without the foundation and foreshadowing that Thanos had, her impact feels limited to the Thor universe and fails to have the same lasting significance. One of the biggest reasons Thanos resonates with audiences is his motivation. Thanos doesn't want to conquer the universe or rule over it. He wants to save it, at least in his mind. His goal is to prevent overpopulation and resource depletion by wiping out half of all life. It's twisted, sure, but it's a clear motivation grounded in what he sees as a logical solution to a universal problem. What makes Thanos' motivation work is that it's based on a twisted, yet somewhat understandable philosophy. He genuinely believes that the universe will fall to ruin if he doesn't act, and he sees himself as the only one with the will to do what needs to be done. It's a horrifying goal, but it's compelling because he's driven by what he considers to be a higher purpose. Hela, on the other hand, is motivated by power and revenge. Her backstory reveals that she was Odin's executioner and helped him conquer realms before he imprisoned her. Once freed, her primary goal is to take over Asgard and spread her reign of death across the 9 realms. While this is a classic villain motivation, it feels less nuanced and one-dimensional compared to Thanos' philosophy. Hela's motivation is rooted in anger and conquest without the same depth of purpose, making her less compelling to audiences who have seen similar villains before. Another huge factor in why Thanos works so well is the amount of screen time and development he's given. In Infinity War, Thanos is essentially the main character. The entire story revolves around his journey to collect the Infinity Stones, and we get to see every step of his plan unfold. We see him make sacrifices, wrestle with his beliefs, and even feel pain when he sacrifices Gamora. Marvel gives him the space to be a fully developed character, not just a one-dimensional villain. With Hela, her time is limited. She enters the story about halfway through Thor Ragnarok and is mostly focused on overpowering Asgard and fighting Thor. Her character development is minimal. Yes, we learn about her past with Odin, but we don't see much of her beyond her role as a conqueror. Her goal of taking over Asgard is fairly straightforward, and she doesn't face any real challenges or inner conflicts beyond physical battles. This lack of depth limits Hela's potential as a villain. She's powerful and charismatic, but we don't get enough time with her to truly understand her beyond her ambition. In contrast, Thanos' screen time allowed him to become a character the audience could understand, even if they didn't agree with him. We see Thanos' journey, his moments of vulnerability, and his conviction. With Hela, we only get a glimpse of her potential, and then she's gone. What makes Thanos particularly interesting as a villain is his emotional complexity. Despite his horrific actions, he's shown to genuinely care about certain individuals, especially Gamora. His sacrifice of Gamora to obtain the Soul Stone is one of the most tragic moments in Infinity War, because it reveals a side of Thanos that most villains don't have. He's capable of love, even if it's twisted and selfish, and he feels genuine pain when he loses her. This moment gives Thanos a depth that few villains achieve. It's not often we see a villain with the emotional capacity to feel genuine loss. This tragedy humanizes him, making him a more layered character. Thanos is not just a monster. He's a character who is willing to sacrifice something precious to him for what he believes is the greater good. Hela, however, lacks this emotional depth. She's powerful and menacing, but her character doesn't display vulnerability or attachment to anyone. Her closest relationship is with Odin, but it's primarily driven by anger and betrayal rather than any deep emotional bond. This makes her a more distant character. While Hela is terrifying and visually impressive, she doesn't have the relatable complexity that makes Thanos such a memorable villain. Thanos didn't just threaten the Avengers, he changed the entire universe. By the end of Infinity War, Thanos' plan succeeds, and half of all life in the universe is wiped out. This wasn't just a threat, it was a catastrophic event with massive consequences. The snap reshaped the entire MCU, affecting every character and storyline moving forward. Thanos' victory left the Avengers broken, the universe in chaos, and set the stage for Endgame. Hela's impact, on the other hand, is limited to Asgard. She does manage to destroy Asgard, but the scale of her actions is significantly smaller than Thanos' universe-wide devastation. Hela is a major threat to Thor and the people of Asgard, but her actions don't ripple across the MCU in the same way. When Asgard is destroyed, the Avengers and Earth aren't affected. The consequences of her villainy are confined to a single realm, which limits her reach and overall impact on the MCU. Thanos' victory, by contrast, created an emotional and narrative upheaval that affected every hero, from Spider-Man to Doctor Strange to Captain Marvel. His impact was felt by every single character in the MCU, and it took an entire movie, Endgame, to undo what he did. Hela's defeat, while dramatic, doesn't leave the same lasting legacy. One of the main reasons Hela doesn't reach Thanos' level is due to a common issue with solo film villains in the MCU. When a villain is confined to a single hero's storyline, their impact rarely extends beyond that movie. This is a problem with characters like Caecilius in Doctor Strange and Yellowjacket in Ant-Man as well. They're limited to a single film and a single hero, which restricts their overall significance. Hela, despite her incredible power, is largely confined to Thor, Ragnarok. She's introduced, her threat is addressed, and she's defeated, all within the span of a single movie. Her story doesn't connect to the larger universe in the same way that Thanos' does. She's a major villain for Thor, but outside of his world, her impact is minimal. Thanos, however, was a villain for everyone. His story was woven through multiple films, making him an integral part of the entire MCU. So why does Thanos' villainy work while Hela's falls short? It comes down to the difference in build-up, motivation, emotional complexity, and impact. Thanos was a fully developed character with a clear, compelling philosophy, an emotional side, and consequences that changed the entire MCU. He was given the time and development needed to become an unforgettable villain. Hela, while powerful and charismatic, didn't have the same build-up or emotional depth. Her goals were straightforward, her impact was limited to Asgard, and she didn't have the same narrative significance across the MCU. She's an impressive villain, but without the careful setup and development that made Thanos great, her character feels less impactful in the long run. But what do you think? Could Hela have been a better villain with more development, or is Thanos truly unmatched? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Marvel deep dives.